The story begins at Tama City Haunu Academy, a quiet school for dedicated students where something unusual lingers in the shadows. In a corner of a classroom, a stunningly beautiful girl sits alone, her presence shrouded in mystery. She isn't just a student, she's a demon. Before long, a young man named Kyuji-kun arrives, confusion evident on his face. He does not understand why he is there or how he has ended up in this place. The girl greets him playfully, a teasing smile on her lips, and informs him that he has come because she has called out his soul. His bewilderment only deepens as she introduces herself as Kanan the Gourmet, daughter of the great demon of gluttony, Beelzebub. With a seductive lilt in her voice, she reveals her intentions. She has infiltrated the school to consume the souls of its most vigorous students. She declares that he should feel honored to be chosen as her next meal. To her astonishment, Kyuji-kun does not react with fear or resistance. Instead, he bows deeply before her, gratitude shining in his eyes. Kanan, momentarily taken back, expects him to tremble in terror, yet he does the opposite. He eagerly proclaims that he has always wished to be devoured by a temptress like her. His words, filled with unanticipated enthusiasm, leave her momentarily speechless. To her growing shock, he even suggests indulging in intimate activities, stripping his clothing as he speaks. Kanan stares in disbelief, realizing that she has underestimated the singular focus of high school boys. As he continues undressing, she hesitates, her thoughts wavering. She wonders if she should take advantage of the situation, knowing that such an act could allow her to consume his soul with ease. However, another thought intrudes. Despite being a demon, she has remained untouched for thousands of years. Just as he prepares to act on his desires, Kanan abruptly stops him, her voice firm. She declares that such matters should only occur between individuals who share genuine affection. To her surprise, he immediately responds that he likes her. His sincerity unsettles her, for she has never experienced love. She has only ever seen humans as sources of sustenance, yet as she observes him closely, she cannot ignore his undeniable appeal. Tentatively, she asks if he truly accepts her nature as a demon. When he insists that he does, she grows flustered by his persistence. He then proposes that they begin by dating. Though hesitant, she reluctantly agrees, though internally she's panicking. Accepting this unfamiliar feeling is difficult, but with that, their unusual relationship begins. Kanan-sama is the president of the Public Morals Committee at Tama City Haunu Academy. Everyone around her always praises her. She is gorgeous, intelligent, and an exceptional student. She is also a natural athlete with remarkable abilities. However, in reality, she is a demon, a soul devourer who preys on young humans. She pretends to be a model student to earn their trust, allowing her to approach them casually before consuming them. In her mind, humans should be grateful to be eaten by such a cute demon. She stands in a classroom, sipping juice, when suddenly Kyoji arrives. At his unexpected presence, she chokes badly on her drink. He then asks her to go home together. Annoyed, she aggressively questions why she would do such a thing. In response, he calmly states that he is her boyfriend, which is why they should walk home together. Hearing this, Kanan feels to be fainting, completely shocked by his words. However, despite her reaction, she agrees to walk with him. As they begin walking, Kanan slowly distances herself from him, choosing to walk behind him instead. Kyuji-kun notices and asks why she is not walking beside him. She finds it embarrassing but refuses to admit it. Instead, she shouts at him, saying she is using him as a shield because a noble presence like hers is always in danger of attack. Hearing this, Kyuji-kun assures her that he will protect her no matter what. Before she can respond, he suddenly pulls her closer. Her eyes remain wide open in shock. He then suggests they hold hands so they will not be separated. This statement makes her panic, and she freaks out, believing that holding hands will somehow lead to producing an heir. Furious, she wonders how he dares to mock her with such absurd logic. She is extremely worried and does not know how to respond. After thinking for a while, she decides to tie his hands with a strip and hold the other end herself. She proudly presents this solution, saying that now they are holding hands just as he suggested. Kyoji, instead of being annoyed, praises her once again. He expresses that he can feel the whispers of her heart and her love for him. Kanan stands in complete shock. His words make no sense to her, and she doesn't want anything like what he is imagining. Overwhelmed by the situation, she suddenly runs away, cursing him as she flees. Kanan is running away from Kyoji, her eyes wet with frustration. She hates this situation. She has not come to the human realm to play meaningless games. She comes here to eat souls, not to waste time. As she runs, her thoughts drift back to the time when she was still in the demon realm, just a few months ago. She remembers approaching her father, Beelzebub, while he is eating. She wants to say something important. He notices her and invites her to join him. However, she expresses her dissatisfaction. No matter what she eats, nothing tastes good. Hearing this, her father looks at her with concern. She then excitedly tells him her plan. She wants to go to the human realm and eat their souls. She believes that unripened souls must taste better. Her father listens carefully and then agrees. He tells her that he also went to the human realm in his time, but he got into some trouble. Kanan assures him that she will be fine. She thanks him before leaving, feeling eager about her journey. Now in the present, she is running while thinking about all of this, but suddenly she notices Kyoji right behind her. Shocked, she wonders if she is hallucinating. She yells at him, demanding to know where he came from. He smiles and tells her that his hands are tied with hers. She then realizes, to her complete shock, that she has been dragging him behind her the entire time. Kyoji sits on the ground, looking amused. He expresses that he has never had such a thrilling experience before. He adds that he enjoys it when she pampers him like a pet. Kanan is surprised by his words. Her face turns red with anger, and she firmly tells him not to compare this accident to a pet play. Suddenly, he says that he wants to do something. Before she can respond, her attention shifts to something in the park. They soon sit on a bench, and he hands her a croquette. He tells her that he bought it so they could eat together. She sighs in relief, but she asks for something to put on it. He looks at her in disbelief and explains that croquettes are meant to be eaten as they are. When she insists, he expresses his disappointment. Annoyed, she yells at him not to say such things. Kyoji begins explaining croquettes with enthusiasm. As he talks, Kanan giggles, finding his passion somewhat adorable. Eventually, she agrees to eat the croquette as it is. When she takes a bite, she is stunned by its delicious taste. She cannot understand why it feels so good. Kyoji then looks at her fondly and tells her that it tastes good because they are eating together. Her eyes widen slightly at his words. Realizing the meaning behind them, she remains quiet and continues eating. But Kyoji keeps looking at her. She gives him a side glance and asks what he is staring at. He simply tells her that she looks cute while eating. Her face immediately turns red with embarrassment. The birds chirp in the fresh morning air as Kanan begins her day early. She prepares herself for another school day, blending seamlessly into her surroundings. However, she is not truly a part of the human family she lives with. Using her magic, she has brainwashed them into believing that she is their firstborn daughter. The family consists of a mother, father, and a younger brother, all of whom see her as their perfect child. To maintain this illusion, she must regularly reinforce the spell. A question lingers in her mind that why she chose this particular family. Without hesitation, she reminds herself that it is necessary to take advantage of a kind and caring household like this. With that thought, she heads to school once again. A smile forms on her face as she enjoys the idea of interacting with humans. To her, they are nothing more than lower life forms. Playing with them amuses her. Another thought crosses her mind is what humans truly mean to her. Without hesitation, she admits to herself that they are simply food. Just as she mutters those words, Kyogi suddenly appears, interrupting her. She jumps in surprise, startled by his unexpected presence. Confused and slightly alarmed, she demands to know why he is here. He responds casually, reminding her that he is her boyfriend and wants to go to school with her. Annoyed, she questions how he found her hiding place. He replies that he asked the homeroom teacher, and she gave him the information. This revelation angers Kanan. She feels frustrated that her personal details have been shared so carelessly. Despite her irritation, she agrees to walk with him on one condition. He must be able to keep up with her. To avoid the embarrassment of walking beside him, she suddenly starts running at full speed. She believes in her own strength and is confident that she will outrun him. However, after a short while, exhaustion overtakes her. She slows down, struggling to catch her breath. Sweat drips down her face as she comes to a stop. In truth, her endurance is poor. She feels humiliated as Kyoji-kun easily surpasses her. Seeing her in distress, he asks if she is tired. To regain her dignity, Kanan quickly insists that a good woman should always stand behind her partner. In response, he casually remarks that this is the role of a wife. Her anger flares instantly. He then asks if she is meant to be his wife. She turns away, refusing to answer. Kyoji, noticing her discomfort, gently offers her a water bottle. Still frustrated, she snatches it from him and drinks angrily. As she drinks, he requests that she leave some for him. Instead, she drains the entire bottle, then furiously crushes it before throwing it into the bin and as usual calls him a low-life form. The classroom hums with the usual energy of students engaged in idle chatter. Majiro Nedashiko, always brimming with curiosity, turns to Kyoji with a teasing glint in her eyes and asks if he has found himself a girlfriend. Without hesitation, he responds calmly, stating that his girlfriend is a senior. Intrigued by this revelation, Nadeshiko probes further, questioning him about his relationship. She presses him for details, particularly how they address each other, pointing out that couples in love often have unique ways of calling each other. Kyoji, as if struck by a sudden realization, rises from his seat and strides towards Kanan's classroom. She stands by the window, quietly observing the world outside, secretly enjoying the sight of her classmates and imagining them as livestock for her. Lost in her own thoughts, she is startled when Kyoji approaches her so abruptly. A flicker of irritation crosses her face as she tells him not to appear so suddenly. However, Kyoji is undeterred, his voice urgent as he asks her to call him by his first name. She furrows her brows, not quite understanding his request. He quickly clarifies, explaining that he wants them to address each other by their first names as proof of their intimacy. A sigh escapes her lips as she thinks about how he is always making demands. Yet in the next moment, she suppresses her irritation, schooling her expression into something neutral. She resolves to comply, but as her gaze meets his, she notices something unexpected. His expression is filled with anticipation, his eyes pleading as if this simple request means everything to him. A quiet realization dawns upon her. He is truly looking forward to hearing his name from her lips. Convincing herself that it is merely a name, she prepares to say it. But the moment she tries, a strange sensation washes over her. Her voice falters as if something unseen is holding her back. A wave of anxiety builds within her, confusing and unsettling. Determined to push through the inexplicable hesitation, she gathers her courage and attempts once more. It is just a name, she tells herself firmly. Seeing her struggle, Kyoji tilts his head slightly and asks if she is so embarrassed to say his name. Frustration flares within her as she wonders why she is taking this so seriously. To mask her discomfort, she retorts sharply, insisting that he should call her by her first name first. Without a moment's delay, he complies. Kanan. The sound of her name spoken so naturally leaves her momentarily frozen. A strange and unfamiliar happiness creeps up on her before she can suppress it. This is what he meant, she realizes. The simple delight of hearing one's name spoken by someone special. Meanwhile, Kyoji continues pleading for her to say his name. The hesitation returns, stronger this time. She cannot explain why, but the thought of saying it aloud makes her uneasy. He leans in closer, the distance between them vanishing until she finds herself trapped in place. Her breath catches. Unable to bear the overwhelming tension, she acts on impulse. With all her strength, she lands a sharp blow to his face, sending him reeling. His eyes widen in shock, his hand flying up to his cheek as he processes what just happened. In the heat of the moment, her anger flares, and she finally utters his name, Yuji, the words spilling from her lips with force. Without giving him a chance to react, she turns on her heel and declares that she is going home. Kyoji remains standing in stunned silence, his hand still pressed to his face. As she storms off, she tosses a final remark over her shoulder, warning him not to forget this moment. Kanan stands by the window, observing two students embracing each other. As the president of the Morals Committee, she orders them to step away from each other, maintaining discipline within the academy. However, as she watches them through the glass, her thoughts wander. She questions why humans are always preoccupied with such indecent notions, dismissing them as mere animals in heat. In her mind, she alone possesses the noble duty of bringing order to the academy. A smirk plays on her lips as she revels in the idea that she will consume their unsullied souls, believing the lower life forms should be grateful for her presence. Suddenly, Kyoji-kun approaches from behind, standing uncomfortably close to her against the window. A sharp realization strikes her. She, the daughter of the demon Beelzebub, has been deceived into a lover's contract by this cunning boy. Immediately, she puts as much distance between them as possible, demanding to know the reason for his sudden presence. He expresses his desire to be with her, reminding her that they are lovers. He wishes to discuss their commemorative first time and asks for her thoughts on the best place for it. His words leave her utterly stunned, as he is the one deciding the location for their intimacy. She recognizes the sincerity in his cravings, yet firmly believes that such things should only take place after marriage. Attempting to maintain her composure, she changes her expression and inquires about his chosen location. He responds with seriousness, suggesting the park, believing it to be an ideal setting with nostalgic memories from their walks to school. Her reaction is swift and harsh, rejecting the idea and labeling him a pervert. The possibility of being seen by others embarrasses her beyond measure. He then proposes the movie theater, only to be met with yet another refusal, her frustration evident as she calls him foolish. In an effort to find a compromise, he suggests traveling, a proposal that instantly captures her interest. The demon within her harbors a fascination with journeys, and her excitement becomes apparent as she eagerly asks about their destination. He suggests the hot springs, but her enthusiasm vanishes as quickly as it appeared. Her anger flares once more, prompting him to unwittingly mention that their first time should take place in his room, just the two of them. The moment the words escape her lips, she freezes in confusion, realizing she has inadvertently voiced such a thought. Kyoji, however, takes her words as confirmation, expressing his joy and excitement at fulfilling her wish. As he steps closer, his voice filled with anticipation, he speaks of creating an unforgettable memory together for their first date. Her face flushes a deep shade of red as she denies any misunderstanding, overwhelmed by the intensity of the situation. Struggling to regain control, she yells that she will only visit his home if his parents are present. She insists that he must keep this condition in mind. Without waiting for his response, she turns and hastily flees, her parting words branding him as a lower life form once again. Under the scorching sun, the students engage in outdoor sports, their energy evident despite the oppressive heat. Kanon, dressed in sports attire, is drenched in sweat from the intense activity. As she catches her breath, Kyoji approaches her with an admiring gaze, remarking on how cute Senpai looks even in sportswear. Uncomfortable with his sudden compliment, Kanon instinctively points at him and demands that he keep his distance. His expression shifts from admiration to shock as he misinterprets her words, believing she harbors some form of resentment toward him. Distressed, he questions whether he has done something to upset her, his emotions escalating as he sits on the ground, loudly lamenting his perceived rejection. Frustrated, Kanon clarifies that she only wants him to stay away because she is drenched in sweat. Instead of easing the situation, he responds with an outrageous declaration of wanting to smell her, leaving her utterly appalled. Attempting to justify himself, he insists that the boys of the country long for the aroma of youth, even going so far as to claim that her scent could overpower the stench of his freshly removed socks. She finds his reasoning bizarre, but he persists, convinced that her scent must be pleasant. She firmly denies it, but his insistence that he would love it simply because it belongs to the person he adores makes her waver. Reluctantly, she allows him to sniff her shirt, but an overwhelming sense of discomfort washes over her. A sudden realization strikes: by permitting this, she is subjecting herself to humiliation. The thought of allowing an underclassman to kneel before her and indulge in such an act unsettles her. Overcome with nervousness, she abruptly stops him, her frustration manifesting as she drops her towel onto the ground. Kyobi quickly apologizes and offers his own towel in exchange. Hesitantly, she accepts it, expecting nothing out of the ordinary. However, as she presses the soft fabric against her skin, a refreshing citrus scent envelops her senses. For a brief moment, she relaxes until sudden awareness pulls her back. Realizing she finds comfort in his scent unsettles her, leaving her embarrassed and conflicted. Observing her reaction, Kyoji curiously inquires about the fragrance of his towel, making it evident that he has caught her in the act. Mortified by the realization, she quickly masks her flustered state with an indifferent response, coldly stating that his towel carries no scent at all. In the demon realm, Kanon's father speaks to a girl named Amy, expressing his concern for Kanon, who is currently in the human realm. He instructs Amy to check on her, and she agrees without hesitation. As Kanon's personal maid, she feels responsible for her well-being and is eager to fulfill her master's request. Amy arrives in the human realm and appears before Kanon, who is visibly shocked to see her. With a teasing tone, Amy remarks that she, too, is curious about what Kanon is doing in the human world. Kyoji is present and immediately questions Kanon about Amy's identity. Kanon explains that Amy has been her personal attendant since childhood. However, frustration rises in her voice as she accuses Amy of sweet-talking her father into allowing her to come to the human realm. Amy, maintaining her playful demeanor, responds that she is simply worried about Kanon, which only irritates her further. Kanon is determined to keep Amy away from Kyoji, knowing her nature all too well. Unlike Kanon, Amy has no reservations about deception or illicit relationships. She is a true man-eater, and Kanan warns Kyogi to stay away from her. However, Amy quickly approaches him, seemingly eager to have a taste of him. Kanan, furious, pulls him away and declares that he is her boyfriend. Amy's eyes light up with excitement upon hearing this revelation, finding it amusing that Kanan has a human boyfriend. Teasingly, she asks how far their relationship has progressed. When Kanan reluctantly recounts their experiences, Amy's expression shifts, unimpressed by their innocence. She scolds Kanan for being so reserved in romance and suggests that if Kanan is not ready, she will take Kyogi-kun for herself. He firmly refuses, stating that he is Kanan's boyfriend. Unbothered, Amy insists that it is not wrong to have some extra fun, continuing to provoke him. Kanan, infuriated, watches in anger as Amy persistently tests their bond. Kanan stands in complete shock as she surveys the scene before her. A large number of students lay unconscious in the school hallway, their bodies sprawled across the floor. A trail of them leads toward a specific room, and without hesitation, she moves forward to investigate. As she pushes the door open, her eyes land on Amy and another girl, Takakyo, caught in a romantic moment. Takakyo, realizing she has been discovered, quickly flees the scene, leaving Amy behind. Amy, attempting to downplay the situation, turns to Kanan with a smile and urges her to ignore what she has just witnessed. However, Kanan's focus remains on the unconscious students scattered outside. She demands an explanation, her voice filled with frustration. Amy feigns innocence, but Kanan refuses to accept her deception. With anger rising in her chest, she declares that the school is like a ranch where she carefully nurtured students to be healthy. Amy, however, has ruined everything by draining them, disrupting the balance Kanan has worked so hard to maintain. Amy dismisses Kanan's concerns, arguing that it is her own fault for wasting time on such matters. Kanan retorts that she has standards, unlike Amy. Defending herself, Amy insists that she only targets those who are truly charming. Kanan, unconvinced, points to several individuals who have fallen victim to Amy. They hardly fit the definition of charm, yet Amy has fed on them without hesitation. Amy simply shrugs and claims that, to her, everyone is charming in their own way. Kanan stands silent for a moment, processing Amy's perspective. She realizes that Amy possesses a remarkable ability to see the best in people, a trait that makes her incredibly popular despite her carefree nature. A small pang of jealousy creeps into Kanan's heart, but she pushes it aside. Instead, she takes a deep breath and suggests that Amy refrain from touching the students any further. Amy agrees without resistance. Before leaving, Kanan pauses and asks whether Amy also finds Kyoji charming. Amy hesitates, her expression unreadable. Kanan notices a flicker of nervousness in her demeanor before Amy finally responds, leaving the answer as a secret. Frustrated, Kanan raises her voice, demanding a proper answer, but Amy offers nothing more. The maid observes her master's boyfriend spending his day off having lunch with a woman other than her master. Upon their arrival, tension fills the air, hovering on the verge of confrontation. Kyoji stands frozen in shock, his eyes fixed on Kanan, and utters that their meeting must be fate. However, Kanan remains unmoved, her attention directed toward the unfamiliar woman beside him. She questions him about her, prompting him to introduce her as his classmate Majiro. Before he can elaborate, Majiro seizes his shirt, insisting that he call her Nadeko, just like in the past. Kanan gets jealous as she watches their interaction unfold before her. Suppressing her emotions, she maintains an air of composure and inquires about the nature of their relationship. Nadeko casually states that they have been inseparable since childhood. Just then, Amy appears, interjecting with a pointed question, asking if they are more than just friends. Nadeko clarifies that they are merely childhood companions. Kanan's jealousy intensifies, an unrelenting possessiveness creeping into her expression. Nadeko, sensing something unnatural, feels a chilling aura emanating from Kanan. With unease, she subtly asks Yuji about her, and he reaffirms that Kanan is indeed his girlfriend, as he had previously mentioned. Shock spreads across Nadeko's face as realization dawns upon her. She quickly clarifies that their connection is only due to their families, and that they are nothing more than neighbors who occasionally run errands together. Kanan listens in eerie silence before responding with an unsettling smile. The rage within her reaches a terrifying threshold, transforming into a sinister calmness. Nadeko feels an overwhelming fear, desperately seeking Yuji's intervention, but he remains entranced by Kanan's expression. As the atmosphere thickens, Nadeko, trembling, unwillingly acknowledges Kanan as Yuji's wife, appeasing the terrifying force before her. Kanan, satisfied, gazes at Nadeko with intrigue, while Nadeko remains frozen in shock. Kanan informs Yuji that he will accompany her on committee business as they have patrolling duties around the school. He acknowledges her request with enthusiasm, expressing his willingness to be at her service. She smirks, knowing that patrolling is only part of her plan. She intends to assert her authority over him, using the opportunity to discipline him like livestock. As they proceed, a girl carrying a stack of papers slips in the hallway. Yuji immediately moves to assist her, inquiring about her well-being and offering his help. The girl agrees, but before he can act, Kanan reminds her they're on patrol and should handle it alone. She thanks them and leaves. Kanan, however, becomes increasingly aware of how often girls seem to approach Yuji. She notes that too many individuals appear eager to get close to what she considers her possession. Smirking to herself, she reassures herself that she is not jealous, though she firmly believes that livestock like him requires discipline. As they continue their patrol, more girls unintentionally bump into Yuji, and he consistently offers his help. At one point, he notices a girl's hair clip and, mistaking it for a fish cake, moves toward her. His mistake draws the girl's attention, further fueling Kanan's frustration. Growing increasingly annoyed, she finally loses her composure and furiously demands that he acknowledge her importance to him. Without hesitation, he responds by reaffirming that he is her boyfriend. The confirmation takes her by surprise, and she exhales in relief, feeling that her discipline has yielded results. Just then, a notification arrives on Yuji's phone. Mashiro has sent a message informing him that she has prepared stews for him. Expressing his delight, he mentions that stews are his favorite. Kanan's anger flares once again as she yells about Nadeko treating him like livestock. Frustrated, she bumps her head against him, insisting he stop entertaining other girls. They are bound by a lover's contract. Her eyes glisten with restrained emotion, but Yuji, observing her expression, remarks that she looks adorable when she is jealous. She vehemently denies feeling jealous. Without another word, Yuji gently pats her head. A strange warmth overtakes Kanan, and she feels her emotions softening. The sensation of his touch calms her frustration, leaving her unexpectedly content. In that moment, the one who intended to domesticate finds herself being domesticated instead. It is nighttime and Kanan is at home, surrounded by her family members and their maid, all of whom are in the kitchen. However, Kanan is lost in her own thoughts, overwhelmed with frustration and self-reproach. Her emotions weigh on her, filling her with embarrassment over how she acted toward Yuji. The thought alone makes her uneasy. She can't help but see it as clingy and humiliating. Observing Kanan's distress, Amy speaks up, expressing her surprise. She remarks that she has never seen Kanan act so much like a girl before. Then, with a pointed question, she challenges Kanan's resolve, asking how she expects to devour Yuji's soul now that she has developed feelings for him. At that moment, Kanan's expression shifts dramatically as the realization sets in. She has to consume his soul. However, she quickly rationalizes that if the opportunity presents itself, she could simply knock him unconscious, and he would surrender his soul willingly. Understanding Kanan's struggle, Amy proposes a plan to make Yuji fall for her. The best course of action, she suggests, is for Kanan to invite him on a date. Determined, Kanan declares that she will demonstrate the pride of a demon to Kyoji-kun. Her family members, who have been quietly listening to their conversation, watch on with amusement and anticipation. However, a sudden realization strikes them. They do not recall ever hiring a maid. The next day, Kanan summons Yuji to the Morals Committee room. He arrives, curious about what she has to say. Amy, standing by her master, encourages her, assuring her that asking for a date is not difficult. As they sit and drink tea, Kanan carefully tries to bring up the topic. She mentions that she has some free time over the weekend, but as the moment arrives, she becomes overwhelmed with nerves. Instead of asking him on a date directly, she blurts out an invitation for a dageko, a training place other than your own. Amy's frustration is immediate. Realizing her mistake, Kanan attempts once more, asking if there is anything they could do together over the weekend. However, once again, she stumbles over her words and unintentionally suggests a deathmatch instead of a date. Amy is now livid, urging Kanan to show her demon pride and ask properly. With mounting exasperation, she even mocks Kanan, sarcastically questioning if she is unhappy with the political climate. Finally, Kanan musters her courage. Slamming her hands on the table, she raises her voice, exclaiming that she is trying to give him a hint to go on a date with her. A stunned silence follows as Yuji stares at her in surprise. Seizing the moment, Kanon grabs him by the collar and commands him to meet her at the station at 11 o'clock. Yuji, still taken aback, agrees. Without another word, Kanon turns on her heel and rushes out, leaving behind strict instructions for him not to be late.